Hello, everybody. It is the 6th of June, the first Sunday, so it must be time for a story. Well, in the month of May, everybody in Kerry Writers Museum had a great time making stories, and I'm no exception. I was struck by the happy memories of working on the bogs of long ago and the Meathal time when everybody came together. So this story was inspired by those memories and by the wonderful people that I met that came along to the Bealtaine Hero Award workshops. And hopefully that workshop will be a live workshop sometime soon in Kerry Writers Museum. So here's the story. Megan was just on the brink of being able to take off into her life. Oh, she had great plans. She was a good girl and she studied hard, and she was the pride of the local school that she went to with her high marks and her good natured outlook on life. But then COVID hit, and it seemed like the whole world froze and stood still. And instead of going off to college in UCC, to the food sciences where she was longing to be, she had to stay where she was in Listowel. Her mother said, "Remember, girl, there's always a silver lining to the COVID cloud. And we have Nana. Isn't it great that you'll be able to spend some time with her?" Those first few weeks, Megan would get out of bed and yawn and think, oh, if only I was still at school. We'd be organising for the grads now. We'd be meeting one another down the long field. Oh, we'd be going for a walk by the river. All of those plans that could no longer take place. And even the children and the kids themselves were getting sick of screen time. Zooming her mates was just not the same as being down by the river and making their plans. So after a week or two, she decided that she'd call on her nanny Anne. They were bubbling up together. It meant that only her family could visit her nan. And her nan was one of the leading lights of the town of Listowel. She loved going out for her morning stroll, and it was like everybody knew her and would say hello. So Annie was finding it difficult to be indoors too. Her garden was blooming, and when Megan found her, she was sitting down the back, shelling the new peas that had begun to come out. "How are you, Alana?" she said. "Put on the kettle and we'll have a cup of tea. It's so nice to see your face." Megan felt herself smile back and wondered when was the last time that she'd had a smile. And her gran said to her, "Did you bring your fiddle, Megan?" "Indeed, I didn't, Nan. Sure, 'tis no fun playing on your own." "I'd have loved to hear a slow air," said Nanny Ann. "All right, so," she said, "I'll bring it the next time." After the cup of tea and they shelling peas together, Megan said to her, "I'm really missing out, Nan." And she began to tell her all of her worries. And Nanny Ann listened, and she just kept up the rhythm of putting the peas out of their shells and into the bowl. And at the end, Megan said, "What do you think, Nan?" And Nanny Ann said, "I think that you don't know you were born, girl." She said, "I was born in the late 1930s when there was a big world war starting in the whole of the world, it seemed to us anyway. And we didn't have telephones. We had one radio in the whole village. And we still managed to have a good time. But you were able to meet up," said Meg. "Yes," she said, "but a lot of people had to leave this place. They had to leave this place and then send the brown envelopes home to keep us going." "That's true," said Meg. She said, "What did you do to keep yourselves occupied?" "Ah," she said, "there was no problem there." And Nanny Ann remembered the great times when they'd play at the crossroads and people would dance in the open air after a day's farming and everybody would be laughing and healthy. "That sounds brilliant," said Meg. But Nan, ye had no money growing up. We never knew the lack, said Nanny Ann. Everybody was in the same boat. We all had to come together and stand shoulder to shoulder. We even had a name for it. What was the name? Said Meg. The name was the Meithal. At the Meithal times of the year, especially in September, all the neighbours would gather and they'd help one another out. First, you bring in the O'Flaherty's uh, crop from down the back field. Then you'd move on to the Murphys. Then it would be over to the O'Sullivans. Oh my goodness, said Meg, interested now despite herself. And how would you feed the hordes like that? Ah, that was the women, she said, and we'd have great times. There was a thing that started. What was the name of it now? Oh, it was Machran of Firmus, she said, and people would join that, and they would get into plays together, and they'd walk the mountains here together, and they'd go off on day trips. Oh, it was brilliant, she said. And as Nanny Ann remembered that, all of the wrinkles seemed to fall from her face, and her eyes were shining. And Meg was wondering how would she ever have memories like that. She had no memories that made her light up, just like her Nanny Ann had. Tell me more about the Meithal, she said. I love that idea. Well, now, said Nanny Ann, that's why cooperatives are so popular in Ireland and why they do so well. Is that true? Said Meg. It is indeed. When you go up to your food sciences there now in the big University of Cork City, you'll go to a lecture and they'll tell you that for a small little island like Ireland, that we punch above our weight when it comes to the cooperative societies. Meg was in awe at the knowledge of her Nanny Ann. But how did they work? Said Meg. Well, now, the women would all get together in the morning and they'd start peeling spuds. And if it was a fine day, like it is today, we'd do exactly what we're doing. Sure, look at us shelling the peas now and chatting about long ago. That's what would happen. They'd start peeling the potatoes and all the news would come out. All of the happy memories, all of the happy announcements of any children that were on the way, the plans for the future. Then they'd say, I might need your good cups and saucers, Anne. And I'd say, that's no problem. And somebody else would say, and I'll lend you the linen tablecloth. And so when there was an important function like a christening or a funeral in the place, everybody came together. And there was no need to even talk about it. Everybody knew what their part was. Mine was to bring the cups and saucers because I had a lovely set of cups and saucers that were the pride of the parish. And then May across the road, she'd bring the tablecloth. And then there was a woman and she was brilliant at baking brown bread. You wouldn't know her now, but you might know her granddaughter, Ellen. I do, and Ellen is a good cook too. There you go, she said. It comes down in the hands. Oh, we used to have great times. And we used to keep all the cider bottles. Why did you keep the cider bottles, Nan? Well, they had a little marbly thing on the top, and when you flicked it into place, it kept the tea watertight and also it kept the tea a little bit warm. It wasn't hot now, but it was warm. It was just what you wanted in the field. And then we used to make egg sandwiches with a small little bit of mayonnaise when that came into fashion, because that wasn't always in fashion. And we'd make tomato sandwiches with a bit of salt on them because the salt brought out the flavour of the tomatoes. And of course, the eggs would be from our own chickens and the tomatoes from our own tomato plants. So there was never a cost involved, just our time. And do you know what, girl? It was always smiling time. It was always smiling time. Oh my goodness, said Meg, that sounds great. She said, how come we don't know about that? The younger ones, I mean. And Nanny Ann looked at her and she said, when was the last time you came and sat in the garden with me and shelled peas so that we could have smiling time and I could tell you stories like these? And Meg said, that's true. With this modern times and all the study, and when you're not studying, you're going to dancing classes or you're going to soccer practice or something. She said, actually, it's kind of nice just to have this time with you. And then her gran said, do you know it's time for lunch? And Megan said, What? Where did the time go? And Nanny Ann said, that's another thing. When you're having smiling time, the time just goes like that. Megan went home smiling away to herself and thinking about the Meathal and about the people coming together and standing shoulder to shoulder and about being able to make a living even when there was no money at all in the place. And she thought, how could they have something like that these days? And then she thought about the cyber Meathal. I'm going to start a cyber Meathal, she said. I'd love to play my instrument, but it's no fun unless I can play it with Sean and Mara. I'm going to get on the Zoom to them now and we're going to arrange a session, she said. And that's what she did. And then she told her Nanny Ann all about the cyber Meathal, and her gran was delighted. Wouldn't I love to be able to go to a session, she said. I heard they started the cyber rambling house there in Listowel. They did, she said. I'll be able to get you on that, Nan. I'll bring over the old computer and I'll set you up. Oh, I can't be doing with new technology, she said. Ah, no, Nanny Ann, she said. As you always say to me, nothing is impossible unless you don't try. All right, so, said Nanny Ann, listening to her own words coming out of the mouth of her grandchild. And so she brought the old computer over and she set it up and she showed her granny how to press just one button and she'd be in to the Kerry Writers Museum. And you know, they had fantastic lectures there about John B. Keane and all the writers of Listowel. And as well as that, once a month they had the Cyber Rambling House. And it was like being there. It was like being there in that little cottage of long ago, listening to Sean Murphy playing the buska ceol and to the lovely Walsh family playing music and singing songs and doing a bit of a dance, and the McCarrans too. Well, it was just wonderful. And she felt as if she wasn't missing out on anything at all. The Meathal Meadow of long ago, because of that beautiful story and memory that she shared with her Megan, brought them all closer. It was a big silver lining to this COVID cloud. Well, now, I hope you enjoyed that story, and I hope that you can join us on the 24th of June when we have the wonderful Wexford teller Joe Brennan coming to lead us as featured teller in the Cyber Rambling House.